Oh, I'll be brave if you're brave. I'll be brave, but only if you're brave. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Lung Cancer Living Room. We're so happy to have all of you here, and we're even more thrilled to be able to talk about the release of Bonnie's new book. You guys have heard me talking about this on the living room here, and of course, GoTo's been talking about it in other places. We're so happy to say that today it's official. It's official. This came in the mail today. Bonnie's going to talk a little bit about this in a few minutes. She seems to be the only one who didn't get her copy so far, but we're thrilled to be here with everyone to be able to talk to you guys about it. So it's the living room, a lung cancer community of courage. We not only have Bonnie here, but a few of the very special people who are highlighted in this book. For those of you who may not know what the living room is, maybe this is your first time here. I'm Danielle Hicks. I'm Chief Patient Officer here at GoTo Foundation for Lung Cancer. And this meeting or this program is all about you. I mean, it was built for you, around you. It's a support and education series created specifically, like I said, for you with patients and caregivers in mind, with the goal of bringing to you live and in real time educational talks from key opinion leaders in the lung cancer community, and in a format and language that's easy for you to understand. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Some of you may have seen the flyer that went out or some communications that have gone out about this meeting. And Dr. Pasi Janne from Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, he's an MD, PhD, and professor of medicine there, unfortunately is unable to join us tonight. He had a last-minute conflict, but he was kind enough to pre-record what we feel are some very important points. And you'll see his messages sort of scattered throughout tonight's meeting. With us, we also have, as you can see on screen here, the fabulous three that I was referring to earlier, Gina Hollenbeck, Jim Pantelas, and Hank Baskett. So welcome to all of you. I want to open tonight's meeting with a brief synopsis of the book. I know we've talked about the book and sort of at a high level, but I want to go ahead and read the back cover for those of you who may not have received your copy yet. So bear with me. Lung cancer. The mere word strikes fear in all of us. Fear of the diagnosis, the treatment, and the ultimate prognosis. Where is the hope? It can be found in the living room by Bonnie Addario, a 17-year survivor of stage 3B lung cancer, who established the Bonnie J. Addario Lung Cancer Foundation in 2006, along with the Addario Lung Cancer Medical Institute in 2008. She is now co-founder and chair of the GoTo Foundation for Lung Cancer, a determined activist on behalf of patients suffering from this disease. Bonnie has built an extraordinary global network of fellow activists, patients, doctors, oncologists, researchers, and caregivers, a thriving and ever-growing community devoted and committed to advocating on behalf of those patients and families affected by this disease. Among all cancers, none are more pernicious than lung cancer. As a lot of you may or may not know, and I'm adding that in, those aren't the words on the back of the book, nearly 150,000 Americans are lost due to this disease every year, amounting to around 400 people every single day. It accounts for 1/3 of all cancer diagnoses, the most deaths of any cancer, and as many losses as the next 3 most deadly cancers combined. The living room, which draws its name, from those of you familiar with this forum, from a virtual support and education group, live streamed internationally once a month by GoTo Foundation, tells the stories of 20 lung cancer patients who have bravely fought this disease and found ways to thrive, not just survive. The goal of Bonnie's efforts is to break down the barriers and stigmas associated with lung cancer and demonstrate how the new wave of treatment options are moving to make it a manageable disease. The people you'll meet in the living room will lead you to believe that miracles are all around us, that they're happening every day, and that they just might happen to the next cancer patient who picks up this book. And as an aside, one of the things I feel it's important to announce is that all the proceeds from this book go directly back into what GoTo's mission is, and research and patient services. So I just kind of wanted to open with that for those of you who may not be familiar with what the book is about. And like I said, these lovely folks on the program tonight are going to be talking a little bit more about that. I want to go ahead and open and start with a video. A few words from Dr. Janne about why he chose lung cancer as his main area of focus.
I chose lung cancer as a field of study during the end of my first year fellowship at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And there are a number of factors that went into that decision. First of all, I like taking care of patients with lung cancer and all the complexities, the medical complexities that happen to patients who are battling the disease. Second, I found a mentor, Dr. Bruce Johnson, who was an inspiration and a wonderful mentor, and really helped guide my career from a very early standpoint, and was the right choice for me at that time. And third, I having taken care of patients with the disease, I thought that there would be an opportunity to impact the disease. 25 years ago, when I was training, lung cancer was a disease that didn't have a lot of hope. We didn't have a lot of therapies or positive outcomes. And yet it was a very common cancer and the most common cause of cancer death in men and women in the United States. So I also saw it as an opportunity to hopefully make an impact in the disease and in the lives of patients with lung cancer.
Bonnie, can you tell us a little bit about, before we jump into the program, about the working relationship you've had over the years with Dr. Janne?
Yes, we've actually become great friends, and there's pretty much nothing that either of us won't do for each other when it involves, especially when it involves a patient. He's an expert in the EGFR mutation, among others. But he actually discovered the EGFR mutation. I don't know how many people actually know that. But I send patients to him quite a bit. I hijack them like I hijacked Hank over here, and send people off to him. And like the same things that happen with the other doctors I send patients to, they almost never go back. When you're with an expert and somebody that really knows everything about your cancer, your very personal cancer, because it is very unique and very personal. You're all different. There are no two patients alike. And that's the relationship I have with Pasi. We both believe that. And we believe there's an answer for everyone if you look far enough.
That's great. Thank you. Before we jump into our three survivor advocate extraordinaires to tell their story, I want to ask you a couple of questions. This book has been a long time in the making. Can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to write this book?
Oh, yeah, it'll probably make me cry. Stigma still is a huge problem for us, a huge issue for us. And it's the one thing, with all the research that's happening now and all the people that are surviving this disease for much longer time, that stigma is still holding us back from getting the job done, so to speak. So I wanted to write a book, and I chose the patients. It took me a long time to pick each one because I wanted every single patient that's in this book, because they're so unique and different. That not two of you have the same disease. Even if you have the same marker, you don't have the same disease. And I wanted the world to meet you. I wanted the world to see the people that get lung cancer. You are the people that get lung cancer. And you are not the people that those people think you are. You're not over in a corner somewhere, with a half a bottle of bourbon and 6 packs of cigarettes. You're people that have children, and you have grandchildren, and you love your spouses, and you have jobs, and you're out there doing, the things that everybody does. I wanted you to be as special to them as you are all to me.
I love that. I couldn't agree with you more that lung cancer, kind of to your point, not only about destigmatizing, but it's not one disease and anyone can get it. And I think we have a great representation of that here tonight. So hope, you see it behind me. It's in all of our communications at GoTo. I know that when we started this lung cancer living room, it was primarily because we wanted to create a safe place that generated just that. When you were diagnosed, was hope something that was easy for you to find?
Are you still talking to me?
I am.
No, there was no hope. The only, I went through what most of you did, misdiagnosed, blah, 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 all of that. And I finally found myself in a Barco lounger getting hooked up for chemotherapy. And that's, I think, when I first realized, wow, you really do have cancer, lung cancer. And so I dove into the internet like everybody does. But back in 2006, there was nothing in the internet but horror. There you didn't see one line that said this was a survivable disease. It was all. I mean, there not only was no answers or nothing to learn there on the internet, there was no hope at all. And I promised myself right then and there, with the needle in my arm and watching the drip, that if I made it through the knothole, I would do something to change that. And, I think everything I've done in the last 17 years has led up to this book. And hopefully it'll be a beginning for all lung cancer patients to show everyone that you're just real people that deserve the care that other people are getting with cancer. You deserve it just like they do.
Mm.
So, and I'm still with you. You touched on it a little bit, but can you elaborate why you think it's important for patients to find hope and remain hopeful?
Because I think, now there is hope out there that we've discovered more new therapies in the last 5 years than we have in the last 5 decades. So, and those medicines are coming faster and faster and faster. And they're going to continue to come faster and faster. And I hope this book is going to push that along faster and faster and faster. There's a true and honest reason to have hope today about lung cancer. There really is. And we have to spread that word. We have to spread that word.
It's a really good point. So where and how can people find hope?
Well, they can find it in the living room. They can find it in our book. And I refer to that not as my book, it's our book. It's something we collectively are trying to spread the word and hope as well. But it's out there. And, we have to encourage discussions. We have to encourage people to talk about lung cancer. Gina and I were on a radio show, I think it was last week, and I absolutely loved him. I just loved him in Memphis. And he said to me at the end, he said, Bonnie, he said, I never do books. I never promote books. I hate to do it. It's a pain in the butt. He said, but I'm never going to be sorry that I did this show, because he said, I just didn't know. So we have to make people know. We have to show them that there's a lot for them to learn and a lot for them to know.
I think that's a great segue into a few more words from Dr. Janne and get his opinion on what roles hope and support play in the patient experience.
Hope and support are important components of what we provide our patients who are battling lung cancer. Most of our patients have advanced lung cancer, where the goal is to have them live as good of a life for as long as possible. And we try to, of course, match the best therapies for patients to achieve this goal. And we're hopeful that those therapies work for a long period of time. I think the knowledge that there are new therapies, new ways to fight the disease, new innovations in the treatment provide additional hope for patients that even if the therapy that they are on currently stops working, there are additional alternatives for them and as a way to treat their cancer.
It's interesting because I think, one of the things, the sort of resounding messages that I'm hearing so far is all the amazing advancements, right? That a lot of people don't have the benefit of knowing about because they don't have access to things like the living room or other educational tools to get them to really understand their disease, that it is a unique disease and that there are options out there. So with that, I want to jump into having a little bit of conversation with some of our rock stars here. And I'm going to go, at least on my screen, from right to left. And I'm going to start with Jim and ask you to tell us, before we jump into some other questions specifically about the book, tell us your story, who you are, what were you doing before you were diagnosed, and how has that changed since?
Wow. And
That's
you're
my
going to
phone.
give me like minutes to do it. Okay. My name is Jim Pantelas. I had a career in IT and big data consulting from the time that I was about 18 years old. And I was 50. I was diagnosed initially with a stage 1B lung cancer. They thought that they'd do a lobectomy and everything would be fine. That was in September of 2005. I went in 20 days after that diagnosis. I went into the operating room at stage 1B and I came out at stage 3B with stage 4 lymph node. It means that it had metastasized outside of the lungs. They had removed about 3/4 of my right lung. And because it had spread as far as they had reached in the lymph nodes, they didn't know where it ended. So I got restaged and my whole plan of attack changed from, maybe a little bit of chemo to concurrent chemo and radiation in an extended fashion. What I had was a non-small cell carcinoma that had probably been growing for a number of years. That's where I came in. My wife was also pregnant the day that I was diagnosed, so we had to deal with on the day of my second chemotherapy. My daughter was born. I did a really cruel thing, and I named her after my oncologist, which I would advise anyone to do. If you got to get diagnosed with lung cancer, take a pregnant woman with you. People pay a lot of attention to you. And when the baby's born, name it after your oncologist and tell him that he's going to if he does live.
My phone off.
So that's kind of who I am. I'm now the father of 3 daughters that are 11, 13. Grace just turned 13 a couple of days ago, and 15. And we're having fun. It's insanity.
But I
So,
have to,
Jim,
I have to tell people watching that when they read Jim's story, he has an amazing story in there about one of his daughters and a very, very kind human being that he met on a vacation that did something extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. So, everybody's story has different caveats to it, and that's one that really struck me.
it's so true. And I think to Jim's point, everybody's story, the entire story anyway, can't be buttoned up in a 5-minute sort of short version, because there's so many amazing points and pieces and turns in the road that I think everyone in the lung cancer community can learn from. So, Jim, after you were diagnosed, did you find hope? If so, at what point after diagnosis did hope seem like something that was attainable for you?
Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought, and I guess the easiest way that I can say this is that I'm somebody that's dealt with depression most of my life. And in some ways, having to deal with depression before this diagnosis gave me some tools to deal with the diagnosis. Um, it also, I had already had to have developed some coping skills. Um, did I find hope? I ended up with a doctor and at a hospital that had the first the first multidisciplinary lung cancer clinic in the state and literally in the Midwest. So they gave me hope. It didn't help when the thoracic surgeon came in crying to tell me that he was restaging me to 3B while I still had my chest tubes in. But hope is one of those things that I don't. I didn't meet another lung cancer survivor that wasn't in current treatment till I went to, and I don't even remember the name of the organization. It used to be called Free to Breathe, and before that it was called something else, and it's gone away since. But that was in like 2012, so I was a 7-year survivor. And what happened was that I was 7 years at an event where there weren't any. And I was starting to meet other people that had survived that were around for 2 and 3 years, and I started realizing how important I was to them. I'm sorry.
No.
so, uh, so yeah, you just kind of you find hope in the hope in the community. I didn't find any hope in our community because I wasn't for the first 7 years, because I was dedicated to the cerebral palsy community. I thought I was going to die, so I was going to make sure that my daughter, who has cerebral palsy, had the best docs and had the best care and stuff like that. So I spent all of my efforts there. And when I found this community, I was just shocked that there were so many of us and that there were some really amazing people in this community. I I don't know why Bonnie chose me to be in the book, because I can name off 20 people that are more telling than I ever was. So it was, yeah, there's hope all over the place in this community. And there's a lot of hope in the work that we're doing in research. There's a ton of hope in research right now, because we're starting to attract the best and the brightest, because we're starting to have success.
Amen.
And that's important.
I love that, Jim, and
Yeah.
all the talk about community. I remember when Bonnie, who most of everyone watching knows is my mom, was diagnosed in 2003. I mean, I'm right there with her, and so is my family when we say it wasn't really easy to find hope. There was not a lot of hope being given from the healthcare community, and there was not a lot to be found in a lung cancer community where you guys could learn from and love one another through it, right? Because that's kind of what we're saying. And I think it was, one of the sort of one of the main reasons and factors behind her wanting to start this foundation, and a big reason and factor behind why my sister and I chose to leave what we were doing and join this community as well, because there was then and still is so much to be done, but we have come such a long way. So how does it feel, Jim, to be a part of a book that puts this positive, hopeful spin on living or thriving, as it says on the back cover of the book, with lung cancer?
I don't know. I just got my copy today. I don't know anybody that's read. I don't know anybody that's read it and says, "Oh, you gave me hope." Yeah, but ask me again in a year. I when I was asked again, I was surprised. So and I'm honored to be part of this. I think one of the things that we all try to do when you're diagnosed with something that will likely kill you, you think about what the stories are going to be when you're gone and who's going to tell them. In some ways, being part of this book ensures that my daughters are going to hear a couple of nice ones because there are a lot of them where I'm an idiot. So I'm ex-Navy. You know, you can't be ex-Navy without being some kind of an idiot at some point, which is better than Army or Marine Corps, certainly. But gotta do it. Gotta do it. You know. But yeah, I mean, it's nice knowing that somebody's listening.
I love that. I remember, and I don't want to derail us, but I want to tell a little story about, you know, when we first started the lung cancer living room, there were a couple of different things that also factored into that. And one of them was lung cancer patients that I remember specifically at our very first 5K in San Francisco. And it was during World Lung, when World Lung was being held in San Francisco. And we probably at that time maybe only had 5 or 6, lung cancer patients that showed up. But each and every one of them said that this was the first time they'd ever met another lung cancer patient. And we were like, how can that be? That you've never met another lung cancer patient, because when you hear about it and other cancers and other diseases for that matter, these communities are sort of already there and able to support. So it was one of the big reasons we started the lung cancer living room and some of the other things that we do. So what do you hope that people who read this book, having read it, I'm assuming you've read it, or at least you understand, the takeaway from it. What are you hoping people who read this actually do take away from it?
That it's not a death sentence. And let me qualify that. We're all going to die. It's the only certainty in life is that we're all going to die. The fact that we got diagnosed doesn't mean that we're going to die today. And if you spend your time living today and allow death to happen whenever it's going to choose to happen, then you're going to live a bit fuller. And I this is going to sound crazy, but and we have talked about this in groups, and some of you will recognize this conversation. But you think about, who do you want your spouse to marry when you're gone? Who do you want to replace you when you're gone to raise your kids? Because you know, you know, but and that shouldn't be a normal, but it should. You should. I mean, if you're marrying somebody, you should care about what happens to them when you're not around to take care of them anymore, right? When you're not around to fill that void. I come from a Greek background where Greek women are expected to wear black for half of their lives and talk about, oh, my Jimmy, so, and never marry again. But the reality is if you care about your family, if you care about the people in your family, you want their life to continue and you want them to be laughing when they're talking about you. I think this book kind of gives people that kind of hope. Not that we're going to live forever, but that we can live with quality, and that all of the extra struggles, all of the extra, I can't climb a flight of steps anymore, bitching and moaning, it's all worth it, So
think that's great. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to move to Gina, and I'm going to ask the very same set of questions. So this is a little different from a lot of our other living rooms. But Gina, will you share a little bit with us about who you are, what you were doing before you were diagnosed, and how that might have changed since?
Sure. I'm the daughter of a Navy commander, so go Navy. But we moved all over the place, and we moved about every 2 years. So they called me a Navy brat, born, raised, and traveled. So I was a Navy brat. And I think that in order to adjust to each new place that I lived, I had to really figure out how to fit in, and I did that by learning to love people, no matter who they were, whether they were like me or not like me. I learned to love people, and with that love for people came a desire to help them. So it's no surprise that I became a nurse, and as a nurse, I learned that, smoking can cause lung cancer. And in my head as a nurse, that became smoking is the cause of lung cancer. And so in 2015, when I had a persistent cough that I knew something was wrong, I never in a million years expected it was going to be lung cancer. I went to 4 different doctors, but because I was 38 years old, no family history of cancer, never smoked any cigarette or anything ever in my life, they just didn't think that anything was wrong. So I had to finally self-pay for a chest x-ray. And once I had that chest x-ray, the report showed that there was something very wrong with my lung. So I took the report thinking that it was a pulmonary embolus or something like that to the emergency room, dressed just like this for exactly what they tell you not to go to the emergency room for, a cough. And they took me very seriously. And finally I got diagnosed. I had already had stage 4 lung cancer at that point. It had progressed to my brain with a fairly large tumor in my brain right off the bat. So I wasn't given a lot of hope. I went on the internet immediately and Googled, like, what's my life expectancy with stage 4 lung cancer? Biggest mistake ever. So, faced with all of that uncertainty and almost sure that I was going to die within the next year, I just kind of looked for some sort of hope. And I found a Facebook support group of ALK positive patients started by another nurse. And, in that support group, we started information sharing, and I started getting hope and thinking, wow, this might be something, that I can actually conquer. And then I was so thankful and lucky to meet Bonnie Addario, and things just kind of progressed. And I wound up becoming the president of Out Positive, and that gave me such an opportunity to meet so many people and to tell my stories. But I was fascinated by when I would tell my story, how people, like, their mouths would drop. And I just thought, you just have no idea. There's so many people with amazing stories. I'm not a unicorn. And so you have to meet all of these people. And that's why it's so important in industry to continue to develop drugs and to continue to do research and to continue to learn what is the cause of lung cancer, what's driving cancer, and how to stop it. And so, anyway, one of the things that we saw in our support group is that where you live determines a lot of times if you live. And we really wanted to make sure that anybody in our group had the opportunity to see those expert doctors, those specialists, the people who know about biomarkers and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I think that gives me just a sense of maybe this is why I'm still here. And sometimes I'll just say I'm a lucky girl. I saw the pain in my husband's eyes when I rolled back for brain surgery and the removal of my, the left upper lobe of my lung. I saw the pain in my children's eyes when I progressed on 4 targeted therapies and we thought there was nothing else to go to. And I just keep getting more hope because more things are being discovered every day. And the truth is, for me, that I wouldn't wish cancer on my worst enemy, but I also wouldn't change it for the world. It's shown me so many amazing things, like these incredible people in this book that have given me hope. You can see that there's miracles happening all the time, and really just the opportunity to share my story and notice that, when we're alive, we should make it count.
I love that. You said a couple of things that I just want to reiterate because I think they're important. One, there's still today a lack of education around this disease and who may or may not actually get lung cancer. It's still wildly thought that it's a smoker's disease, either current or former smoker, and if you don't fall into that category, that it's not something you have to worry about. And I don't think that's just in the community where the layperson lie, but I think it's also still in the healthcare community to some extent, and that kind of points back to not just what you're diagnosed with, but where you're diagnosed, right, and what the level of continued education is in that particular area. I think that is an important piece. The other important piece is Dr. Google, because I know we hear this all the time, right? Of the first thing you do. When my mom was diagnosed, it was the first thing I did, right? And I think what a lot of people out there don't recognize is even if you're looking at the most current data, is 4, 5, 6 years outdated. And to Bonnie's point earlier in this, that the fast and furious way with which research is happening and drugs are being approved is not counted in what some of those data sets look like. So stay away from Dr. Google for sure. And then the third thing is that sort of this continued sort of theme throughout this conversation about community equaling hope. Because I think, whether it's, part of the go-to community, part of independent, patient communities or other organizations out there, I really feel like this is such an important piece for everyone diagnosed, and not just, the folks diagnosed with lung cancer, but their extended loved ones and care teams, for them to be able to have a place to go to. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the things you were talking about before we jump into the next piece, which you kind of touched on, but more specifically, and I know Jim talked a little bit about, well, I don't know yet because the book just, was released today, but how does it feel, or how has it felt, since you were asked to be a part of this book that does put this positive spin on living with lung cancer?
Well, it's a complete honor to be a part of this book. And I also, like Jim, was kind of surprised that I would be asked because there are so many incredible stories. But, for me, I think that when somebody picks up this book and sees all of these people with these amazing stories, my hope is that they can see that when it feels like things are impossible, sometimes the impossible is just that. It says I'm possible, and so I think that that's one of the things that I keep seeing over and over again. When you think that there is nowhere else to go, something amazing and miraculous happens, and so it really is one of those things that just really gives me hope, and I hope everybody will get a chance to look at it. But it is an incredible book and with incredible people in it, and that's probably one of the biggest things. When I think about cancer being, and I know a lot of people don't like to say this, that cancer is a gift, but it does a lot of times really feel like a gift to me because I've had the opportunity to meet incredible people, and this book reflects that.
That's great, Gina. And last question, and then we're going to move over to the big hug over there. But what do you hope people take away from this? People that read it, why should people read this book?
I think about, like, I remember hearing this story about, like, in the military when people are going through boot camp and they have, like, the night of hell of their life when they're getting, they're in the trenches and they're trying to get to the next thing. But that one person who starts singing, or that one person who gives you that voice of hope, and then it starts spreading and spreading and spreading. And I think that's what my hope for this book is that people will pick it up, read it, and spread the hope so that people will know that lung cancer is not a death sentence, and every day that you're given is truly a gift. So make it count.
Thank you, Gina. We're going to move over to Mr. Hank Baskett, affectionately known by everyone as the Big Hug, because that's exactly what he is and what he does definitely bring to this community. So welcome, Hank. And I'm going to ask you the very same questions. Can you talk a little bit about who you are, what were you doing before you were diagnosed, and a little bit about your diagnosis and how that might have changed?
Thank you. It is an honor to be with you all. This group but they double team me. I've got 2 Navy to 1 Air Force. I heard that Navy. I think some you all stacked the deck. You know. Now I'm a 30-year veteran in the Air Force.
But our decks are full of planes. They're full of planes.
okay. Let's get you close.
Okay. All right.
I retired from the 1991, and I retired to play golf and go back to school. I was doing both of them with the priority on golf. And after I finished, I wasn't planning on working. But it's funny how our creator have plans. Because I went back to school and I started directing a child advocacy center for abused children. We would travel over the eastern part of New Mexico, interviewing at certain locations, allegations of child abuse, interview the children. And I wound up doing that 21 and a half years. But when I was 67, I had been having this nagging cough. It consisted, and it was probably several years. I'd go in there, they give you something here for you got chest, maybe you have pneumonia, you got a cold. But on April the 19th, my friend was going to Amarillo, Texas, where the VA was. And I wasn't working. I said, I'll ride it with you and your wife. He had an appointment. And I just said to him, I'm going to go in the emergency room and have him check this cough out. I went in there and the doctor took an x-ray. And he came back, hey, Chief, I don't like it. I got the x-ray. I saw something, but I don't like it, but I can't tell. He sent me back for a CAT scan. Came back and gave me the news. It was just like you said. It's cancer, like he said, and it's bad. Wasn't no stage this, but because he was just on shift emergency doctor. He said it's bad. What we gonna do about it, Doc? Well, I'm gonna send my nurse in here and she'll schedule you to talk to someone else. And so she did that, and we were driving back home, Mr. Bill Mack, and I'm thinking, how am I going to tell my wife? And just like what you said, Gina, it shouldn't be considered, both of you, a death sentence. That's in my mind, how am I going to tell my wife that I was just issued a death sentence? Because that's all you knew about. Lung cancer, most of cancers. You get cancer, you're going to die. You know, my father is 79, passed away. He had throat cancer. The 9 siblings in the family, mom, dad, all the family, no one that I know of other than my father and then me ever was diagnosed with. So I'm sitting there, we ride back, and I think, I say, God, I give it to you. I give it to you, Heavenly Father. You know what's going on. You know better than I do. I just went back home. It was about an hour and a half drive. Judy was working, came home. She come through the door. I was sitting down. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "No, what's wrong?" And I told her. That woman looked at me. I never want to see that look that she gave me. It's just, and I said, "Honey, God's got it." And I said, "We gonna beat this. We are going to beat this." I said, "Man didn't give me life. Man can't give me death. He can't give me a death sentence." And my son Hank, he was playing professional football at the time, and he was out in L.A. And my daughter-in-law, Kendra, was on the Dancing with Stars, and I called Hank out there, and oh boy, he's talking about messing up a good evening. It just tore him up because Judy said you got to call the boys, and then I had my two girls by my first wife. I had to call them. Then I had my sisters and brothers. So I got. I think that was on a Wednesday. Sunday was Easter, and Hank took little Hank the fourth. That's four of us. So he took Hank the fourth up to the mansion, Hugh Hefner's mansion, and for an Easter egg hunt. And I had fellowship with Hefner when we would go out there, and I considered him like a friend. He was a good man. And he told him what he just found out. And this is what Hank told me. He said, he called Mary over, she was personal confidant. I said, tomorrow, it was Monday. First thing you do is call all my doctors. I want Mr. Baskett out here. I want them to examine him. And I went out there, and they, cardiologists, pulmonologists, uh, primary care, you know, uh, and oncologists, all of them. So in 4 days, I saw them all. And they took a biopsy, and it was right. It was stage 4 lung cancer. And, you know, I don't know, stage 4, you don't know about these things. You don't know
Yeah.
about, got somewhere where you go say, okay, we want to make sure you learn about lung cancer. So when it hits you, you know. You don't get that. I taught 12 years
Yeah.
at a community college.
Yeah.
I was
So Hank,
able to
it
build
sounds like in
something.
the early stages, like everybody, right? It's a scary time, not full of a lot of hope. At what point did that kind of turn around for you? When did you start to
Okay.
feel hopeful?
Well, I was going out every week from closer to Mexico to LA. And the next year, summer, Hank, he had a golf tournament. And for Addario's Lung Cancer Foundation. Now here we in LA, you in Frisco, but Hank, it was specifically targeted for the funding to go to that foundation. And that's where I met the little hug, Bonnie J. Addario. I call her the Energizer Bunny. And you talk about hope, and I always knew where there's life, there's hope, you know. But that young lady sitting right there looking at me, that was hope. She bugged me about going to see Dr. Ross Camich up at UC, University of Colorado. Until I said, yes, ma'am, I'll go. When I got back to Mexico, I was going to try to get an appointment. Oh, Mr. Baskett, we have an appointment for you. I'm thinking, what? I haven't called him. She said, yeah, Dr. Camus came in and told us to set an appointment for you. And this is it. Uh, I knew. See, when things happen like that, it's not in your control. But it was awesome. I said, okay. And the first thing I thought, I said, I bet Bonnie, she had to call. I went up there to the appointment. Me and Mr. Bill Mack, the same one. That joker, you know, I guess I'm stuck with him. We drove up there and I saw the staff. And tell you what, everything else from day one. I have 31 years in the military, and I probably have not seen as many professionals in the military as I have seen at the UC Colorado Anschutz Cancer Center. From parking the car, for the people that park your car, I've had it's that's hope. When you're talking about there's hope, Bonnie, but there's faith. That's where God planted it. Just put her there. Why? Why did he have to do it for that particular foundation?
And I
he,
think one of the interesting stories or pieces of that story, Hank, is that very little was known about biomarker testing in general back then, but particularly ALK, right? And Dr. Kamage up at University of Colorado was heavily invested in the research and testing for this. And it turned out that you did have that particular biomarker and were able to go on targeted therapy. So that was a really
the,
sort of game-changing moment. And I'm thinking probably a really hopeful moment for you. And it looks like Bonnie wants to say
it
something. I
was
see this
it
is
was
I
my
do.
key.
beautiful.
I do. I do. We were at that golf tournament that day, and I am obviously not a golfer. So I was sitting next to him, and he could barely walk at the time. So I'm asking him, I'm drilling him, I'm asking him all these questions, and I said, I need to get you and get a second opinion. He said, oh no, I love my doctor. And I said, let me let you love another one. Okay. So he fought me. He fought me forever. And I called you at least once every 3 weeks. I said, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. He finally said, okay. And we got him up there to see Ross. And of course I called Ross. And, so they had a welcome party for him. And um, yeah, meant to be, absolutely meant
It
to be.
was.
But
Meant to be. And
Yeah.
and full of hope, full of hope. I
You
want to be
know, it
mindful of
was.
time because I know we've got some folks on the East Coast and it's getting later and later by the minute over there. But I want to ask that final question to you, Hank. And how do you feel about being a part of this book, and what do you hope people who read it take away from it?
Well, it's an honor. It's just to be able to tell your story so that the world can know, that there's always hope. As long as you're breathing. But along with that hope, you got choices. You know, you've got to sort of listen. Like I didn't listen. I listened to Bonnie, but maybe that was just to get rid of her. But when a person, and then when she told me her story, a part of her story later on while we was at that golf tournament, I'll listen to that woman till the day I die because it is hope. She's coming from experience, you know, and I just hope that people look at that. It's not coming from Bonnie wrote all those stories. It's the story, the life of all of us that have been touched by this dreadful disease. You know,
I
but you
could
can
not agree
live
with
with
you more.
you.
exactly.
Go ahead, Hank.
My father, see, they probably could. He died. He never did recover from that. But I will not give up. I believe in, like I always say, where there's life, there's hope, and there's a
That
lot of
is,
hope. There's a lot of hope in this book. There's a lot of people that saying that they hope. There's a lot of blessings. I think I think my Heavenly Father, He kept him around for a reason, so I'm going to try to make him happy.
There
Spread some
you go.
I
joy.
love that. I love that. I love that so much. We've got about 5 minutes left, and before we go to final thoughts, and Dr. Janne also has some final thoughts. A couple of key points that I've picked up again. I just want to circle back to them for a minute. And it, not only does it circle back to community, lung cancer is not what you think it is. You're not alone. I think there's been a resounding "you're not alone" from everybody talking tonight, and I think for those of you that read the book, you'll see that in each and every one of the 20 stories. People who are diagnosed with this disease are fathers and mothers and nurses and veterans from the Navy and the Air Force, and they're people.
Mm-hmm.
They're your neighbors, they're your friends, they're your grocery store
Mm-hmm.
clerks. And I just think that's a really amazing and important piece to point out. And one of the things I hope that folks who read this book take away from it. And with that, I want to go to Dr. Janne again. And the question that we asked him was, what role does GoTo Foundation play in this patient experience? And here's what he had to say.
Foundations like GoTo are very important for patients and the lung cancer community in general. First of all, they're critical in helping patients navigate the complex world of complex and challenging world of when one is diagnosed with cancer, especially if they're diagnosed with lung cancer and do not have access to specialized centers that have specialty focuses on treatment and management of the disease. Foundations are advocates for patients and all of us to bring awareness to lung cancer and the needs that we still have to improve the survival and outcome of patients with this disease. They are critical in communicating that message to everybody and for people to understand that lung cancer is not a disease. Lung cancer is a disease where there are hopeful therapies, there's opportunities for treatment. People can live for years being diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. And I don't think that message is out there in the general public.
So we heard a few of Dr. Janne's final thoughts, and now I want to let you guys just to, give me a couple of, sentences or final thoughts that you may have before we go ahead and close out. And I'm going to circle backwards again and start with Jim, and then go to Gina, Hank, and then we'll let Bonnie finish that up.
Okay, I would just want to add, the day I was diagnosed was September 1st, 2005. It was within just a couple of weeks of Peter Jennings dying. And that was a shock. So all of the magazines in the waiting rooms were all about lung cancer. They all were filled with statistics, and all the statistics sucked. The statistics still suck, but and they're all real. They're just not real for you. And I think everybody on this panel would tell you, anybody that's listening would tell anybody that's listening, that none of the statistics that you'll find today include anyone that's diagnosed today. None of the statistics that you'll read are valid for you. They're all real. They just don't include you. So there's a lot of hope.
Thanks, Jim. Gina?
I was diagnosed in 2015, and on the day that I was diagnosed was the Paris bombings of nightclubs, and I was at a major teaching hospital, and the doctor told me that I had 10 months to live. And I slammed the door and walked out of the room and said, "You don't know me and you don't know God." And I knew that
Amen.
research was coming, and there was so much that was out there, and no one was going to put an expiration date on me. And so I think that my takeaway is to never, never give up.
Yep.
Thanks, Gina.
See,
Love it.
I,
Hank, do you
hey,
have a final thought for us?
don't let man give you a death sentence. Where there's life, there's hope. And I see 5 beautiful faces of hope right in front of me.
I love that. Thanks, Hank.
God bless.
And Mom, I'm going to turn it over to you. Any final thoughts?
Well, I have many final thoughts, but the thing that comes to mind the most is you have validated why this book was necessary. Everything each and every one of you said validates this book, because this book is about 20 amazing, very unique and very different people that are all just like you. They're all just like you, every single one of them. And I'm going to leave you all with something, because I trust that you will do it. We are better together. We have to stop working apart. We're better together. And if we can bring everybody together a year from now, we can retire and not have to do this anymore. We are better together. We have to stop working against each other. And I am the first one to invite everyone to our table.
I love that. I want to read a quick little testimonial from someone watching online tonight. Some of you watching may know her, Evie Schiffman. She said she's so glad to be watching the living room tonight. Thank you to Bonnie for writing this book, and to Jim, Gina, and Hank for sharing their stories of hope with all of us. So just a little something to come from tonight. And I before I do housekeeping, I can say, for me, my original inspiration and dedication to this disease began with the very own Bonnie Addario. But I've said before, it's come so much farther than that. And not just, the three of you on this panel tonight, and the 20 people that were in the book. And I know my mom can tell you that was not an easy task, determining 20 people, only 20 people, I should say, because there are so many of you out there who have and continue to inspire me. And I know everyone at GoTo and in this community every day. So thank you to all of you. So with that, we talked a little bit about the book tonight, just a little bit. But if you don't have your copy, it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So please, I encourage you to go out and order one. You can find that information, of course, on our website at gotofoundation.org/book. We tried to make it easy for everyone to find on the website. Our next living room is coming up June 15th. The next topic is going to be biomarkers and new targets in lung cancer. We're fortunate enough to have Dr. Stephen Liu, who's the Associate Professor of Medicine and Director of Thoracic Oncology and Director of Developmental Therapeutics at Georgetown Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center. So be sure to join us the third Tuesday next month at 5:30 Pacific to check that out. And I will encourage everyone. They've been throwing up on the screen tonight a URL, and that URL that you've been seeing, is gotofoundation.org/living room. And if you go to that page, there's a little button about halfway down that asks you to join our community, and this is the community you're joining. And I think if we've heard anything tonight, it's how important that piece of this experience is that community. So we encourage all of you who are interested to please go click that button and come join us in this space. For those of you who are interested in our Summer Jam virtual 5K, you've heard me talk about that the last few living rooms as well. It's on its way June 26th. You can also find information about that at summerjam5k.org. Thank you again to all of our amazing panelists, Gina, Jim, Hank, Dr. Janne, and the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston for supporting this foundation, for being here, for speaking on behalf of the book, for being the amazing, incredible humans that you are, sharing your stories and spreading hope all over the place. Thank you all so very much. All of you, of course, watching tonight live, or those of you who will come back and watch post-live, we appreciate you. We're so grateful to have you as part of this community. Peninsula Television, who are the folks on the back end, enabling us to be able to bring this to you. And I would be absolutely remiss in not thanking the GoTo team, all of them. Every single one of the people that I am blessed to work with contributes something to this community in some way, and it means so very much to them to be able to do it. Also our supporters, without their funding and support, we wouldn't be able to bring this to you. So Amgen, AstraZeneca, Bristol Myers Squibb, Daiichi Sankyo, Foundation Medicine, Genentech, Lilly Oncology, Merck, Novartis, Regeneron Sanofi, and Takeda. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, we're going to close out and really look forward to seeing you all next month. Have a great night, everybody.
Oh, I'll be brave if you're brave. I'll be brave, but only if you're brave. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see.